And so nice to meet you finally, Ana Clara. How are you today?
Hello, Shauna. Yes, thank you for having me and for your initiative. It's great.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so first of all, tell us where you're calling from.
Mhm.
Before you do that, I actually want to introduce you. So, guys, this is Ana Clara, and she is a lawyer at Almeida Diaz and Asociados, which is a
Exactly.
legal firm that's based in Portugal, but they're also based in different countries. They have main offices in Lisbon, but they have representations in Tomar, Portugal, Sao Paulo, Brazil, and also Tehran. And they deal with a wide range of matters. So they do immigration, they also do civil, corporate, and sports. And she's one of their main immigration lawyers. So I'm so happy to have you. And please let everybody know like where you're calling from, and also maybe just like a little bit of a background on the help that you give to.
Okay. So yes, I am a lawyer. I work here in Lisbon. Actually, our law firm is based in Lisbon, and that's where I live. I am an immigrant myself too, so I can relate with the journey and the desire to relocate. I've did it for myself, and now I do it for other people. I help my clients achieve this goal. So I think I also have faced the personal experience of immigrating, and now I work with that as a lawyer here in Lisbon. I am from Brazil. I've been living in Portugal now for 6 years already. Time
Wow.
flies. And I graduated in law school in Brazil. I am a lawyer registered in both bar associations, so Brazil and Portugal. And I've been working with immigration here for 3 years, I'd say, at least. Of course, the pandemic had its ups and downs in terms of course, how it worked during the COVID and how things were a little bit interrupted. But I would say that this has been going on in my professional life for this past 3 years.
Okay, so interesting. Thank you so much. And where in Brazil? Is it Sao Paulo that you're from?
No, none of the big cities, actually. A small city in the northeast of Brazil called Natal.
Natal.
It's not far from Lisbon. Of course, there is an ocean in between, but it's a short flight. We are a little bit up northeast. So, yep, I am from Natal, and although I do love my original country and town, I have been living in Lisbon for 6 years, and I also adore being here.
Oh, I've heard such great things about Portugal. So, okay, let's jump in because I know so many people want to move to Portugal. If you guys can put yes in
I
the
know.
chat if you want to move to Portugal, or if you're thinking of Portugal as a path to the EU citizenship, just so Ana Clara can kind of see where everybody's at. Okay, so can we talk about this pathway to EU citizenship,
Mhm.
Ana Clara? Because a lot of people that are here, they want to retire there. Some want to retire early. Some do the remote work. But I think
Okay.
the end goal is, how do I have permanent residency and how do I have the EU citizenship? So what would you recommend for people in terms of
Okay.
visas, in terms of the process?
Look, although I understand other countries in Europe might have also their own paths towards citizenship, I can't speak for all of them because it changes depending on the country that you choose to go and where do you choose to actually establish your permanent residency. But in Portugal, it's important to understand that this comes after 5 years of legal residence. So you arrive here, you establish your life, you get a residency permit, and after completing 5 years, regardless of the type of residency that you go with, so that is valid for the 7 visa, this is valid for other visas as well. After these 5 years of legal residence in Portugal, which start counting after your first card, so you get your card, your residence permit, nice, and then after 5 years, you can apply for citizenship. So this is considered as one of the shortest paths in the EU to achieve an EU passport. As I said, I do not have a lot of experience in other countries. I don't know what's their policy and what's their rules about it. But yes, in Portugal, that starts with a residence permit, and then you count 5 years after that. That's how you achieve a citizenship.
Okay, awesome. Now, is buying property, I know some people are asking this, is buying property the only way to do that in Portugal?
No. Actually, Portugal has recently announced their intention to terminate what was called the Golden Visa. And yes, within the Golden Visa, which was a path to citizenship that Portugal also had. You could buy property, you could do this investment, and then after 5 years of legal residence, you would also achieve citizenship, and buying property was one of the ways that this law allowed you to have that. But this is soon to be finished, and Portugal will eventually, we assume, still the law is about to be published with its rules and deadlines, etc. But this is going to end. So buying property won't be one of the, I would say it's not an available option anymore. You have other types of visas and other scenarios that you can explore without having to go all the way with the investment in a property, which is of course a lot more expensive than investing in other paths, of course.
Yeah, and that's a big misconception. Actually, here on the summit, it's been brought up multiple times over the past couple days. So can you maybe jump in and tell us, what are those options, and the D7 versus digital nomad one, and how?
Yeah, so the D7 tends to be the one that people look at the most. They are more interested in this one also because up until last year, the D7 visa used to be used for people that received passive income and also for remote workers. This was not officially said anywhere in the law that remote workers could apply within the D7 visas, but our experience with a lot of consulates, with a lot of clients, showed us that the consulates and the immigration authorities in Portugal were accepting remote work under the scope of the D7 visa. So the D7 visa, which was originally designed for retirement, there is also a religious purpose under D7 visa, not very common, but also you can apply for it. Basically passive income. So our clients could use Social Security, 401k, savings, royalties, real estate income, dividends, interest, all of that. And not only that, remote workers could apply as well. But now they have split the two categories, and digital nomad visa and the D7 visa now are the most suitable options for, I would say, 90% of our clients. Of course, there is also the entrepreneurial business visa. You can do it it's also called as D2 visa. There is the student visa, there is the work visa if you already have a Portuguese contract or a promissory contract of work in Portugal, which you can go for. But yes, I would say that the digital nomad and the D7, now the D7 is really for passive income, and the digital nomad is for remote workers, they have separated, tends to be the most looked out options for our clients, for sure.
But the D7, you can still apply for it if you're a remote worker, right?
Yes, you can. You have to show if you are going as your, let's say, your main. What happens sometimes is that our clients have both. They have source of income based in remote work, but they also accumulate passive income.
Yes.
It's not clear yet how to mix that. If your main source of income is a remote work, it might be better to bet on the digital nomad visa. There is a minimum threshold that you have to meet every month for the digital nomad visa. And if you are above it and your passive income is not as high as the remote work income, I would say go for the digital nomad visa.
Okay.
But if you are someone that receives passive income on a more consistent amount and basis than the income derived from the remote work, then yeah, sure, go with the D7. Both are still an option, but you can't mix. You have to choose. Right. What are you going to bet your case on?
Right. Now, the D7, though, I know there's a lot of articles and YouTube videos, but sometimes those aren't accurate. What are the minimums right now, just so we can even see if some people are qualified more for the D7? I mean, maybe people have the remote work, but they have tons of passive income and they have the justifications to show it in their bank statements and everything and their savings accounts. What is the minimum thresholds for each? And then I encourage you all, like, we only have 30 minutes here, book a call with Ana Clara. She's donating 20 minutes of her time. She normally doesn't do this. I asked them personally if they would do this. And she said,
she did. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is actually a new link that she created. This is not normal. So normally you have to pay for legal time. So I would highly advise you guys get this free gift. But anyways, to answer my question, what would you say the minimum thresholds are for each of them?
All right, so the minimum threshold for the digital nomad visa, which is the one that's into remote workers, is very clear. The law, the Portuguese immigration law, establishes very clearly that you have to prove, at least for the past 3 months, so you proved last 3 months of income in your application, that you have been making at least 4 times the Portuguese minimum wage. So, of course, this can change because the law does not say exactly the amount. It just says that the minimum wage is the reference and that you have to multiply that 4 times.
Okay.
The Portuguese minimum wage as of today is 760. So 760 times 4 is 3,040. So if your remote work provides you with at least 3,040 euros a month for the past 3 months, you are then, at least on a first analysis, of course, you are eligible for the digital nomad visa.
Okay.
Then for the D7 visa, on the other hand, there is not a very clear requirement on terms of minimum threshold, which makes people have the minimum wage as a reference sometimes. It is not my understanding and it's not my recommendation because, of course, there are other things that you have to balance with the minimum wage. If your passive income is 760 and you won't use any other source of income to, let's say, back up your visa application, well, you might face difficulty in paying rent, costs, bills, etc. So although the law is not very clear, under the D7 visa, which is the minimum threshold, I would not recommend to rely on the Portuguese minimum wage, so the more the better. The digital nomad visa, on the other hand, as I said, it is very clear, so 4 times the Portuguese minimum wage should be the bare minimum.
Okay, because I've heard that as well, like you have to fund this Portuguese bank account, right, with a certain amount.
You have to do that. I think that's why people sometimes think that because it is true that you have to have a Portuguese bank account, and the amount that you have to deposit in this Portuguese bank account is calculated based on the minimum wage. So for a person, it's 12 times the Portuguese minimum wage, which is 760. So you have to transfer around 9,120 euros a person. Okay. Of course, this math changes depending on if you're bringing family members, etc. But because this is a requirement, sometimes people think, oh, okay, so if they have this reference for the Portuguese minimum wage, they might want of me that my passive income is 760, which is not entirely true. Okay. They might think that it's not enough. So it's not very clear, honestly.
So with the D7, it's always good to go way more, right?
I would say so. Yeah.
Is there a certain amount that you have to show in savings during the application process as well that you would recommend?
Other than the Portuguese, you mean other than the Portuguese bank account, I assume?
Well, are they different? Do you have to show like your assets? Do you show your assets in stocks and your stock portfolio, how your money is making money, and the money in the bank account, the Portuguese bank account? How does that work?
Exactly. The more the better is the rule regarding the D7 visa. Of course, it's not necessary to disclose everything if you think just a few things would suffice for your case. But I would say that savings in your home country bank account are always helpful, regardless of you having to show anyway the Portuguese bank account too. So you show the Portuguese bank account and you also show savings. This is how I usually recommend my clients to do.
What are like the steps for them? If most of us are in the US, FYI, there are some people calling in from South Africa. We also have people, if you guys want to let Ana Clara know where you guys are calling from, so she kind of gets
I think I've dealt with all the consulates in the US, really. Most of our clients are from the US. So San Francisco, Washington, New York, Newark, Boston. Yes. I have dealt with so many. Yes.
Okay.
All of them, pretty much.
So question. What did people do first? Because I know there's the D7, and then it's like once you get that visa in your passport and you move to Portugal, then you have to do the residency. What do they have to start doing now? I know they're gonna obviously work with you. We don't recommend that you do it by yourself because it's very complicated. But what do you recommend? Like, what are the steps to actually getting it? I know you have to do the FBI background check while they're in the
US. It is necessary, yeah. You have to get your criminal record, although it is important to understand that this FBI criminal record, of course, has a validity on it. So do not start by it. I would say you don't start with the FBI because there is a short validity in the document and they won't accept it after a few months. So it's better to start with other things. For example, getting the tax identification number in Portugal, which is essential. It is what you will use for pretty much everything here in Portugal. Getting your rental agreement, paying your bills, signing your utilities contracts. The tax identification number is, I would say, the very first step that you have to take care of. And
Okay.
it's essential for you to start with the bank account, which, as we discussed, is a clear requirement of the process. So you will have to have a tax identification number anyway, because the bank account requires that. So,
Right.
okay, let's say this person, okay, we want to go to Portugal. Where do we start? Well, I would say if you're 100% sure about it and you are just trying to start the process, get your NIF, which is how we call the tax identification number here. So then you can move to the bank account. Once these two things are ready, I would say then, okay, let's gather the other documents because they are a little bit time sensitive.
Okay. So the other, and somebody was asking, you do all of this when you're in your home country. Yes.
Exactly. Of course, this is something that we understand. It's not very easy to navigate if you are in the US. I mean, if you are in your home country. But yes, it is mandatory because it's part of the requirement list that you do present this bank account. So it's better to start fulfilling the requirements. So it's necessary to do it when you are not even in Portugal yet.
Yeah. So
This is an assistance. Yeah, sure.
Sorry. You said the tax ID and you start with the tax ID in the bank account. What about the accommodation piece? I know this is like the most difficult part of getting the D7. You're supposed to have a 12-month lease, or can somebody invite you? And can you recommend that a friend can invite you and that waives the 12-month lease clause?
Look, I've had people approved and I've had consulates complaining about being invited by a friend. You never know what to expect in these cases. I would say that their preference, and this I speak about all the consulates that I have worked with, their preference is that if you're using a host letter, someone that is going to invite you to be with them in Portugal for at least the first year, even if you're not staying there for the first year, but if they say that if you want, you can stay with them for the first year, it is of their preference that this person is related to you.
Okay.
Family-wise. So there is even a part in the form that they say family links, if any. So I'd say if this was not important, they wouldn't even put in the form. So it is their preference if you're being invited that this person is from your family. I've seen people be approved with friends. I'm not saying it's black and white situation. It will depend on each circumstances. But yes, it is a valid option. The Portuguese immigration authorities even have a specific form for you to fill in and ask a friend to host you if you have somebody in Portugal. But the alternative is indeed, as you said, Shona, the 12-month lease, which I understand it's not also very, easy. Also, other consulates, some consulates that I have worked with also accepted long-term Airbnbs as proof of accommodation. So if you do not find a place, it's not, okay, I will give up on the process. No, we know it's your preferred route, but you can also go with the Airbnb for a few more months if you don't really find something that you would be interested in.
Because I've heard, and thank you so much for touching on this, because I know this is the hardest part, is the lease. And
look, every set here on the chat, I used Airbnb. So yeah, as it's accepted.
Okay.
It will really depend on other things about your case. Yeah.
Okay. So definitely you're going to help people with that because that's like the hardest part. But see, this is the problem that I was looking into was when you go on Flatio or some of these websites to try to find flats, they're super expensive. And it's like, damn, this is the same price I'm paying in LA. So then it kind of like defeats the purpose of even moving to Portugal because these 12-month leases are asking for like $2,000, $3,000 a month. And so I'm kind of confused at how can people find a lease, and do you have any resources as a law firm so that people can
in terms of housing, we can't assist much in terms of finding a place and helping you, let's say, meet your budget with the location.
Mhm.
Of course, that it is honest of me to say that Lisbon is not a non-expensive city as it was for,
Yeah.
I mean, at least until a few years ago. This is not true anymore. It is getting expensive. It is getting a little bit of US prices in a few locations, in a few neighborhoods, depending on the building that you go for. This is all true. But we've had clients that chose, because they were interested in another way of living, they were not interested in Lisbon at all. So they had not that hard of a time to find a place that would be within their budget. It really depends on what is your priority in terms of, okay, I want to be in the main city. Yes. So if you're going for Lisbon, you already know that the rental is not going to be cheap. This is something that does not exist in Lisbon anymore.
Right.
And Porto, for example, which is the second main city, it's pretty much the same. It's not as expensive as Lisbon now, but it is getting there. It is getting
Yeah.
similar. But I have people that have chosen to live in like central Portugal, far from the big cities, which is not big if we compare to the US and Brazil.
Yeah.
But the main cities, let's say. And they have found places that are a little bit more reasonable, I would say. It is not cheap. The accommodation is for sure something that I understand it's a challenge. But on the law perspective, on the lawyer side of the assistance, what we do, of course, is to review the lease that you are going to eventually sign with someone, just to make sure that everything is according to Portuguese legislation regarding, like, if the deposit is reasonable, if there is a clause saying about how soon can you give notice to leave, what are your rights as a tenant, what are the landlord's right as the owner, and so on. Of course, we do all of this, but the finding of the place itself is something that will depend a lot on what you want as in your priority to live.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. And if people do want to go the Airbnb route, do you still need that lease to show to the consulate?
You have to show the proof that you have paid for the Airbnb, like a confirmation from the person that is hosting you, and the proof of the payment is absolutely something that I would recommend to add.
Okay, so just even that, and not for if they go the Airbnb route, then you don't need a lease. You just show the proof of payment for the entire 12 months.
Not necessarily 12 months, not necessarily 12 months. You can do for less and it would still be acceptable. It depends a lot. It is important that I mention this is not something that I am assuring, because as I said, it varies a lot depending on the circumstances of your application. What you show as your income, how much you have deposited in your Portuguese bank account, this is all something that will be taken in consideration. So they are eventually a little bit more flexible if you have showed more income, let's say, something that can work like that. They do not say why they approve or not. We just have to rely on experience to say, okay, this is the kind of profile, this is the kind of application that they would be willing to eventually accept a shorter accommodation that is not the 12-month lease. But it will depend a lot.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful. And then Deshawn, and feel free, guys, raise your Zoom.
I know there are a few questions here in the chat. I can go over them. Let's see.
Deshawn,
will they accept Flatio apartments? Yes, I have clients that I have used Flatio. It was accepted.
Awesome. Also, Deshawn says, is a large lump sum of savings sufficient for the D7?
What sometimes works is, let's say, and then there is another question here related to that with the lump sum, which is I'm not yet accessing my passive income, which will be my retirement or my social security, which is coming in, let's say 5, 6, 7 years, but I do have savings that I can use to back up for my living until then. Is this accepted? Yes, we have worked with that scenario already. If you show that you will be collecting social security pension in a few years, but what you have in savings, for example, something that would be enough for you to live until this date, until this year. Yes, we have scenarios where this is acceptable. Yeah.
Okay, so it does have to be kind of like a short window. What if it's like a
20... I would not say, okay, I just have this amount of money. I am 25 years of age and I will have this amount of money in my bank account. Well, do you think this is enough? I would say that if there is no passive income in your future whatsoever that they can see, it will be continuously coming to your account every month. If it's just a lump sum, it is more delicate for sure.
Interesting. Unless the lump sum is sufficient to last you your entire life until.
Yeah, it can happen. It can happen. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. So in that case, like, because there's a lot of young people that want to do this, and there's also a misconception. or question. When you get the D7, do you have right to work in the country? Does it give you right to work?
Yes, if you have a D7 visa, once converted into a permit, the D7 visa is just a visa that is stamped in your passport. So once you arrive in Portugal and you attend the immigration authorities meeting, you will actually receive a residence permit. This first residence permit is valid for 2 years, and then you can renew that for 3 years. But both of them, the first one and the second one, I mean, they will allow you to work in Portugal if you want. So you can have Portuguese work offer, and if you are interested, you can accept it, because this kind of permit allows you to work if you want to, allows you to do business, to launch a company. I mean, there are no restrictions. You don't have to always be focusing exclusively in the passive income for your subsistence. You can work here if you want to.
Okay, awesome. And is the process when you get to Portugal a lot easier? Once you have the D7 in your passport, you arrive.
No, for sure.
It's pretty simple, right? It's just you're applying for this card. And what's the other step again?
Sorry, for when you arrive here?
Yeah, when you arrive, you're applying for the residency card. So
Exactly.
You just go to the office. And then is there anything
You go
else
to the
you have
immigration
to set up?
authorities office, you will receive a card, and it's done. You've finished, basically. You now have to wait for renewal.
Okay, and then the renewal is 5 years after that.
The first one is valid for 2. So after the initial 2 years, you will renew it. The second one is valid for 3 years. So when you complete the first 5 years of legal residence, which is 2 cards, one of 2 years and the other for 3 years, you can either apply for permanent residence, and the permanent residence, the first one is valid for 5 years, okay? And this is if you can choose that you will, if you will accumulate both, or if you will just go with one. Citizenship, because as I said, after 5 years of legal residence, you can apply for Portuguese citizenship.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We have a couple other questions for this.
Yes, there is one question here from Steve. As Irish citizen, what is required to relocate with US wife to Portugal? There is a process in Portugal. I mean, not only Portugal, but other EU countries have a more welcoming policy if you are a family member of an EU citizen. So being an Irish, you can apply for your wife's residence card inside Portugal. You don't have to make her go through a visa process just to come and then apply for her card. As an American, she's in a situation where she's from a country that is a visa waiver. She can come under the 90-day tourist visa that she's can benefit of. And while here, she can do her residence permit due to the fact that she's married to an EU citizen. So it's a more simplified process, let's say.
Awesome. Yeah, he's got it made for him. Sounds like that's a good problem to have. And then how long do you have to stay in the country per year for the D7?
Yeah, so that's interesting to touch, because it's not per year that it is counted. It is for during the validity of the card. So if the card is valid for 2 years, the rule is you must not be absent of Portugal for more than 6 consecutive months or 8 non-consecutive. So it's not like how many months you can stay in, but the maximum that you can be out. So during this initial 24 months, you must only be absent for a maximum of 8 months non-consecutive. You have to basically split your absence if you want to.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that.
Do you have to be married if you're bringing a domestic partner? Yeah, it's more advisable, because to prove the partnership, if you're not married, they can be a little bit more demanding in terms of documentation.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm going to bring Maddie up here, and we'll take maybe one more question. Can Americans work entrepreneur or remote under a 90-day visa? Which is just
I think so.
I think so, Lena, they can.
Yeah, if you're working with your computer, like remotely, sure.
Yeah. And then somebody asked about, even in terms of digital nomad visa, what are the basic requirements and what are the tax situation for digital nomads? What's the percentage?
Well, it really depends. There is a tax regime that you can apply once you're living in Portugal, which is called non-habitual resident tax regime. You can eventually benefit of a few tax exemptions or a flat tax rate of 20% on your income if you're not paying the taxes in the country where you work. So, but this is really, really a very generic scenario. I would definitely recommend a consultation to analyze the tax perspective. As Avery said, not necessarily your lawyer, your immigration lawyer will be the most recommended person to help you understand all the tax implications. It might be, it might not, but definitely it's something worth exploring, especially if you are a remote worker, how to pay the taxes here. And if you are like a freelance, it's definitely something that your profession, depending on what it is, can grant you a 20% flat tax rate on personal income tax for a period of 10 years.
Okay, well, thank you so, so much. And Avery's asking too, Anna, does your firm work with taxes?
We help with the NHR tax regime, which is something that this is the thing that I have mentioned. I wouldn't say we are tax planners. I mean, a lot of people that reach out to us are interested to know if we also do, let's say, American taxes, for example. Do you help with both? No, we give the advice on the Portuguese side of the things. And of course, it is, as Avery said herself, I do recommend that a CPA is aware of what you're doing here. And then, of course, you can match both information to know if you're doing it 100% correctly, both on the Portuguese and on the US side of the things.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, Ana Clara, thank you so much for taking your time out of your beautiful Sunday to really help this group. I mean, we are so grateful for you. And then also, I've put, again, the free consult. Please jump on that 20-minute call with Ana Clara. Portugal is definitely a great route, and we don't know how much longer the D7 is even going to be open. So, I mean, I would really jump on this and really just get going with this EU citizenship. Thank you, Ana Clara. And I wanted to introduce you to Madison. She's an awesome content creator and solo female traveler. So she's actually in Latin America right now, calling us from Nicaragua, and she's going to be sharing some fun solo female nomad tips.
Nice to meet you, Anna.
Nice to meet you, Madison.
Thank you so much, Ana Clara, and have a great rest of your Sunday.
Likewise.
Looking forward to hopefully meeting you one day when I come to Lisbon.
Sure, absolutely. Be in touch with us and we will, of course, schedule something. Bye-bye.
Awesome. And everybody say thank you to Ana Clara in the chat. It was great. It was.
They are saying here, they're very nice. Bye-bye, all.
Okay, bye. See you soon.
Bye.